From the heart of Maine, this is the DuView podcast.
All right, and welcome to this month's episode of the DuView podcast. I am your host, Du, a.k.a. Ryan Dumont, and joining me for this month's episode is actually my high school English teacher, but also master educator and Maine author, Mr. Tom Wells. Mr. Wells, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, Ryan.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate it, and like I said, Mr. Wells was my high school English teacher, and so we met at Coney High School in probably, like 2012, something like that. I think I was a sophomore, and I took your creative, I really wanted to take the journalism class, but apparently there weren't enough people signed up for one or the other, so they had to combine it with creative writing. And I'll have to tell you, Mr. Wells, I think I got more out of the creative writing the creative writing portion of it than I thought I would, and I just thank you for that, in terms of changing, and that's the big thing, I guess, for this episode, is changing my perspective on writing, and reading for that matter, too.
Well, it's nice to hear that, quite honestly, because it's very important. Those are some of the most important things to learn
Frankly.
in life and in school.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true, and I just, how many years did you work in the Augusta school department as an educator? I know you still do some substituting from time to time, but as a full-time educator, how long did you work in the Augusta school department?
I worked for 41 years.
Wow. And I'm sure they're 41 of the best years of your life, of course, no doubt.
Well, there's little doubt that it made me feel whole. As you know, I still substitute now and then when I need my dose of kids.
Right.
I still coach track and field, and it's pretty much just to reconnect with kids because kids are truly meaningful.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I had my dose of time in education, as we've talked about. And funny enough, I've told people this story that had you. And so I'm working one day over at Coney, as I've talked about on the podcast many a time, and teaching 7th grade English. And I hear this voice coming from the room next to me, and I go, I know that voice. I said, that has to be Mr. Wells. And I didn't realize that you were subbing, and you had enlightened me to that fact after, we had connected. But it was just like, I was like, Mr. Wells? And you're like, Ryan? Which was, I said, it was kind of funny. Like, and of course, where did I end up? I ended up in an English classroom, which was honestly one of the most rewarding experiences of my young life. And
it's where you belong.
Yeah, I at the time, I definitely thought so. But, the electricity is my calling now. But who knows? Maybe someday after, I've done time in the field, maybe I'll teach, the future generations.
I'm not going to stop bugging you until you do.
I know.
I think I was a difficult teacher.
Let alone after, when we're both just hanging out, right?
Yeah, as soon as that camera turns off, I'm going to give you a punch.
Oh, no.
The wrestling coach in me will come out.
Right, yeah, oh, yeah, having a headlock, like, this is how it goes. But was there anything, I guess, speaking about Augusta, was there anything, like, unique about teaching in this city, or was it,
There was a very unique thing about Augusta.
And what was that?
It was the only school to hire me.
That's true.
When I applied in 1976, I went to Bates College.
Yep.
And when I sent out applications, the teaching was very demanding. Or not necessarily demanding, but in demand.
Yes.
Kids. I applied to 83 schools. And I got 3 interviews. And Coney was one of them. Interestingly, when I showed up for my interview, they basically told me that there were 70 applicants for that one job. And after that piece of information, they said, well, Mr. Wells, we noticed on your application that you wrestled in high school in New York. I said, yeah. they said, well, we have wanted to start a program for a number of years. Would you be willing to, and I never had that in my plans, obviously. I didn't wrestle in college. I was on the track team and played football. But I looked at them and I said, well, I'm going to ask you a point-blank question. How important is it to you? I said, you say yes, and we'll say yes. So I literally was hired to be a wrestling coach.
All right.
And an English teacher. Oh, by the way, you teach English, right?
Yeah, you also are qualified to teach English, right? Yeah.
So it was one of the very many things that I consider lucky. And I consider my entire career very, very lucky, which is one reason why I use the expression "dumbass luck" a lot. We'll get to that, but
Yeah, we'll get to that.
it was literally a series of some people nowadays would say "step in, you know what." Back then, I called it lucky.
Yep, that's fair. That's definitely fair. And like I said, that did make the Augusta school system unique. No one else had Tom Wells. That's true.
They didn't have Tom Wells. Not that they necessarily wanted me, but they wanted a wrestling coach, so they got Tom Wells
right?
too.
And so you mentioned that you went to Bates, obviously, and I think the biggest wow factor when you told us not only that you went to Bates, being originally from where in New York, actually, backtracking.
It was a small town on the Hudson River, about 40 miles north of New York City.
Okay.
All right, in the Hudson River Valley.
Yep.
It's called Montrose, and the largest town near it would be Peekskill or Poughkeepsie.
Okay. Yep. Familiar with Poughkeepsie.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh,
I was south by
and
about
so
10
I guess,
miles.
and then getting to Bates, what kind of attracted you to going to school in Lewiston? I mean, Lewiston was a much different place than it is now, and I'm sure when you were at Bates, but
Yeah, well, it still was. Actually, back then it was a huge mill town.
yeah, right. The mills were still open. And
Absolutely, and I went to Bates mainly because it was one of the 2 or 3 colleges that accepted me.
that's fair.
But yeah, I truly loved pole vaulting and track.
Okay.
And their coach, Walt Slavinsky, whose son Peter coached Bowdoin.
Oh, okay.
Actually, his son was in middle school when I was at Bates, and I worked with him in the pole vault.
Oh.
But overall, I got in because I was a pole vaulter.
Fair.
And I loved it. And it was a marriage made in heaven, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, and that goes on to you later coaching track at Coney and
Oh, yeah.
Other things like that. But we'll obviously unpack that in just a second. And so, what kind of drew you to majoring? Because I remember when you talked about you didn't just major; you also majored in what, philosophy?
Psychology.
Psychology. Sorry, no, psychology. Yep.
Well,
One of them. We're close, but not quite at all.
No, it's another story of just like stepping in it.
Right.
I mean, I started as a pre-med major,
Did you?
and about February of my freshman year, I looked in the mirror and said, "This is way too hard. It's way too much work." So I chose. I said, "Well, by the end of the year, I'm going to change my major, but I'm going to take a couple classes in different subjects and see what I like," which I did for spring semester, and I really kind of like psychology. So I put psychology as my major beginning sophomore year. But then by the end of sophomore year, obviously I realized, because I never was much of a thinker. Basically my future was what was for lunch.
Right.
So I never thought, hey, you have to go to, if you really want to be a psychologist, you have to go to grad school, which I didn't really want to do. So I did a lot of research into what my friends considered the easiest major at Bates. And they pretty much said, well, probably education. I said, okay, I'm officially an education major now. But I needed to get a major in a subject that could be taught in high school. So I couldn't use psychology because that's not taught in high school.
Right.
So I was an avid reader, and I started just doubling up on English classes so I could get certified to teach English. So I followed that, and I followed education, and did my student teaching at Lewiston. Back then, it was called junior high, and that was the beginning of my dumbass luck, because my teacher, for whom I worked or student taught, really liked me. Her name was Helene Mikas, and she used to go to the principal and just brag about how good of a teacher I was and stuff like that. So this principal's name was Jack Seymour. So I graduated with a major in psychology, a minor in English, and a teaching degree. And when I got the interview at Coney or Augusta,
Yeah.
I found out that Jack Seymour was just hired to be the middle school principal. So he rubber stamped my hiring.
Wow.
So I literally started at Hodgkins in 1976. I started the wrestling team at Coney in the same year, so I was kind of going back and forth.
Right.
And I had a principal who loved me to death, and he was absolutely to die for a mentor. So, again, my dumbass luck kicked in.
I mean, that's definitely fair. I mean, that's.
Yeah,
I mean, that's. Hey, I mean, sometimes we write our own luck, and sometimes it's written for us. I mean, that's definitely a fact. I
Yeah.
mean, that's.
But
I mean, it's interesting too to see like where you started as like a very much like an athlete. Kind of like a just
Yeah.
trying to get through,
Yeah.
just trying to get through school, but also, I mean, as it must have surprised you looking back at it now, how it definitely transformed into much more.
you couldn't have written a script,
Right?
any more unbelievably than
Right.
that.
No, truly, and I mean, that's funny to hear you, kind of talk about,
Yeah.
what's as someone who like preached,
Yeah.
working hard and
Yeah.
not skipping any steps, and I don't mean that as an
No.
offense, and
No.
it's just kind of ironic. It's kind of funny, really.
The work thing kicked in when I got into teaching because
Yeah.
I adored it,
Yeah.
and I wanted
Well,
to
when
make
you
sure
fall
that
in
I made a
love, I
difference.
mean-
So, without a doubt.
Yep. That's excellent to say. And so, was it? How long did you end up coaching or when you started the wrestling program? How long did you run it for?
Well, I
after?
started the wrestling program in 1976, and I coached to 1989.
Yep.
And I've been really lucky because I've had some absolutely to die for people take it over,
Yeah.
and it's been a very powerful. We won the state championships, I think, in '88 before I kind of retired, but the Terry Devereaux took it over after that, and Sean Topman, who's there now,
Yep.
is gifted.
Yes. Yep.
And the program's been very respected and very strong for all those years. So, I mean, I got into officiating as soon as I got.
I've seen
yeah.
pictures of you officiating
Yes.
wrestling matches.
Yeah, I've maintained contact with the sport for enough years to, quite honestly, I'm not bragging, but I got inducted to the Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Oh, congratulations!
Like 6 years ago or so.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Well, that's
I know.
excellent.
I just thought I'd spring it on you.
Yeah, hey, I mean that's you got to keep me surprised in some capacity. So hey, that's excellent.
Well, it's fun. I mean, I still have. We have a little club that we formed called the 29 Club, which interestingly it was named after John Smith, who was the Gardner wrestling coach.
Oh, okay.
My first year teacher. He actually helped me so much. Ironically, Coney Gardner.
And the rivalry was still pretty big back then.
It was very big, but he
know.
he literally would bring his team or let me bring my team to Gardner so I could help coaching them. He could help, because I only had a high school coaching degree, so to
Right.
speak. So, but he helped me pretty much start the program, and we had some rivalries that were to die for.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yep.
But again, it's part of my shit ass luck or dumb ass luck that
Right.
it happened that way. We're getting together actually next week. I started telling a story about this little club we formed based on John Smith. He retired on February 9th, 2009, and we formed this club where we would get together at the very least once a year, and there's like 20 members, and they're all well-known wrestling coaches throughout the state.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, Jimmy Coffin from Morris and
Yeah.
and the Hanleys from Gardner. Sean Totman's in it.
Oh, wow.
Wally LaFountain,
Yep.
who pretty much founded Winslow Wrestling. Just
Oh, yeah.
all kinds of people. So I'm going to see him this weekend. I'm really looking forward to it.
Wow, that's excellent. That's
Yeah.
really cool. And I mean, like, I knew like you had coached wrestling, but I didn't know like how in like we always talked about track or like
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
Whenever we talk about sports. Actually, funny enough, we were getting ready to leave for a swim. I swam and for Millet during the wintertime, and
Yeah.
so we were talking with Totman because I also had him for a couple classes, and he goes, I'd love to poach you. He goes, you'd be a great wrestler. And I go, yeah, I'd have to hit the weight room a little bit first. But yeah, we could. And Millie goes, nope, he's mine. I need him to swim long distances. It was just fun. And I mean, Mr. Totman's a great guy.
Hey.
I mean, the fact that one of the classes that very impacted me a lot. Tried to talk again. Impacted me a lot in high school was actually his Holocaust studies class.
Yeah.
It's an amazing. I mean, I don't know if you've ever talked with him about it, that class specifically, but I mean,
I've heard about it.
It's
more
very,
than,
very
yeah.
incredible. And he does such a good job with. I mean, as
Making the Holocaust real.
Exactly. I mean, like, but showing folks how real the stakes are and how how important it is to be educated about like how to prevent genocide and things like that. And like the overall message of acceptance and all the other, I guess, good, bad things that came out of, the situation. But just incredible, and like, of all places, like a smaller high school in, the state of Maine, to have such a rich class like that. And a lot of other great colleagues of yours, too, that taught some really incredible classes.
I was blessed to have the colleagues that I did.
Oh, most definitely. So you started off at the middle school teaching, though. When did you actually make the move to the high school setting?
That was about 7 years later.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really hard coaching at high school and teaching at the middle school.
I'm sure.
So it actually helped me start programs at the middle school because that's where you want to start them.
Yeah, you need your feeder
That's
program.
one reason why Coney wrestling took off so fast, because I had the kids wrestled in classroom. But it was difficult.
Yeah.
So as soon as there was an opening at the high school, I took it.
Yeah, I definitely don't blame you there, and I'm sure it's like, especially when you're working with high school kids, it's a different. You have to play things off a little differently too, and demeanor and everything like that, and so it's a different teaching style, with different.
It is
age groups,
Interesting though. The middle school back then was quite a bit easier than it is now.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
And did you always when you got into teaching? Were you always just like, I need to get to the high school? Is that always? Or
No,
were you just like,
no, it wasn't a plan.
Yeah, no, it was just. We'll
It's
see
just
where this
like
takes
me.
us.
I just like everything I've done
If
in
I
my
can
life. I
step
feel
in
I
it,
just
right?
fell into it.
And so I guess when you started, teaching at Coney, you're at Coney at this point, and so you're down at the old, where the Hannaford and Augusta.
I was
is now.
actually, my classroom was in the old
the
building,
old Flatiron,
overlooking
which is the
circle, traffic
were you?
circle.
Wow.
I could literally
Did you
see
just
the
count all the
accidents in the traffic circle. Yeah, they were quite distracting.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it's well, I'll tell you this little anecdote from college, a little bit different, not accidents, but as you know, St. Anselm College is a very political school.
Yes.
And they had loaned the front of the alumni hall, which is the very pretty, brick facaded front of the, brick fronted with the ivory, all that stuff. And they had loaned it out to the Clinton campaign. Specifically, Miss Clinton herself showed up and gave a speech while I was trying to take a Spanish quiz. They didn't move the classroom. They just let it they just let it happen and I'm trying to sit there and I'm like, I didn't even really dislike, her, that much. It was just like, but now I really hate you because you know what? I did terrible on that quiz.
Whoa.
Not because I didn't study, just it's hard to,
you were studying Mrs. Clinton.
Yeah, I get, just had to listen to all of them talk, while you're trying to focus on a foreign language and let alone taking French at Coney, which really, really confused me. But, it's.
Yeah. But the interesting thing about the old building was where we had wrestling practices.
Oh, was it?
In the basement, it was the perfect place for practices, which always started with the drill we call the hell drill.
Oh.
And the hell drill was literally 30 to 45 minutes of conditioning. This is before practice even starts. And they always ended with the kids running up and down the stairs of this old building, which had 4 stories for 10 minutes. And
They were in shape, I'm sure. Holy shit.
when I got together with my wrestlers this past weekend at Southwest Harbor, that was their, I'll say it in quotes, fondest memory was running the stairs at the
Yep.
old Coney.
Yeah. It's either that or end up running outside at the hill,
Well,
doing sprints up and down.
this is
that,
worse.
You know,
Stairs are worse.
Oh, definitely. All day. I'm just saying in terms of
Yeah.
like that area, you
Absolutely.
have a lot of
Oh, yeah.
running punishment you
Oh,
can do.
yeah.
It's
all up.
impressive. Oh yeah, it's all up.
And for some reason, none of it goes down.
Yeah, I know, right? That's up with that. It's like when you're talking with an older folk or like somebody's. I walked uphill both
Yes,
ways.
exactly.
And in Augusta, you actually can. You can walk uphill both ways.
Yes, you can.
Especially like if you're like my dad was a French-speaking individual or something like that.
Yep.
If you're up on the hill and you have to walk up a hill up to a hill and. Or actually, I think when he was in Cody, they lived over on like Child Street, over by the State House.
Yeah.
And so, or right behind Capitol Park, and so like still have to walk up a hill.
Oh, yeah.
And then across the bridge, and then up another hill. So you did have to walk uphill both ways. you
Yeah.
know? So it's just funny how Augusta actually like fulfills some of those things, for the idioms and all those types of things.
They don't call it disgusting for no reason.
No, that's true. And I guess kind of looking forward, and I guess other than you being here, I mean, what made your experience made you want to stay in Augusta? I guess could you see? I mean, like you're how many years into teaching? Like by the time you're at Coney, you're what?
Oh, like 8 years into
Yeah,
teaching, approximately.
almost
Yeah.
10 years,
Yeah.
almost a decade into teaching, and so I guess what prompted you to like stay in Augusta? I mean, is there something other than Tom Wells is here? Is there something you just never?
It
had
was
the-
just it was a marriage made in heaven.
yeah, it just
I
was
always
right.
felt like I fit. I always had support of any administrator under
Yep.
whom I worked. I always
That
had
makes a huge difference.
Yes, I always had absolutely wonderful friends who are all passionate about teaching and love kids. And I mean, despite the fact my first year's salary was $3,750, that was about the only downfall.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you always joked about the teacher's salary thing, but I mean, it's it was interesting. Well, like during COVID, they were paying long-term subs $25 an hour, and you could tell it definitely bothered some of the some
Yeah.
people. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh, fucking scab,
Hey.
It's like
For
ooh,
what they
oh,
do,
boy.
it should have been,
Oh, it should, I mean,
$250 an hour.
Teachers deserve a lot more. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
just across the board in general. I mean, and the funny thing is with education too, not to get like too off the rails politically, I guess, about education, but it's like just throwing money at the problem doesn't just
No.
solve it. It's like you actually have to like invest, as you said, invest
Hey.
time into it and like get organized and and I it's just it's just kind of funny how those things work out. But like again, having an area like Augusta that you have support of your administration and everything like that, like you said, that is definitely for an educator a match made in heaven in many ways. Again, having people to collaborate with
Yeah.
and everything like that. I mean, that's definitely how I saw the teachers when I was there. Folks that loved what they 90% of them loved what they did,
Yeah.
loved where they did it, and really not loved each other, but loved
Yeah.
each other and
They
as a
respected one
family
another
and
at least.
respected each other in a big capacity, and like everybody kind of looked out for each other, which was kind of cool. I mean, which is I don't think you can say that for a lot of bigger schools or even other schools in the state of Maine for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for
Right.
other schools, but I just know what we had.
Right.
And one thing that made it far more than tolerable was I didn't live in Augusta.
Right, and I was actually going to ask you about that. How was that dynamic?
Well, I did.
working in one town,
Yeah.
and having like two communities basically.
Well, I mean, I started in Augusta, and I did.
Right.
I had an apartment actually up on. I forget exactly what the name of the street was, but it was up by Frank Pomelos.
Oh, okay.
I lived in Palermo actually my first year teaching, so I was obviously driving back and forth, but I did live in Augusta for like 3 or 4 years, and it was nice, but I bought a house in Winthrop, the Lower Narrows Pond,
Oh, nice.
back in the mid '80s, and when I got married in '89, my wife also had a home on Androscoggin Lake in Wayne. And Wayne is one of the
And
most wonderful communities.
This is when Tom Wells moves to Wayne, Maine.
Yeah,
that's it.
when I moved to Wayne and never looked back.
Because that's always been a big, I guess, part of your, I guess I'll call it character, is that, it's like, this is Tom Wells. He's from Wayne, Maine.
I'm from Wayne.
Yeah.
And I used to commute to Augusta at 4:30 in the morning.
Right.
I was behind my desk by 5, and I did that for 2 reasons. It's the best time to get work done in the school because there's no one there. And driving to Augusta from Wayne, which is like a 19-mile trip, Western Avenue is about the worst place you can drive on during rush hour.
Oh, yeah, in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, you've got everyone go to the Capitol, all the politicians and all the businesses. But it's literally bumper to bumper traffic all the way back to Manchester.
Yep.
But at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'll say it in my students' language, there ain't nobody there.
That's true. It's
So-
just you and the custodian.
Yeah. It's
That's too funny. And so I remember one day in class, I think, I can't was it either your kid or somebody had gotten in an accident with a deer with you were very, well also known for your Prius.
yeah.
And it hit a deer, and you went to go grab like the passenger side handle, and I guess you kind of fell into your shit luck again in the literal sense this time, as you opened the handle and realized it wasn't guts from the deer, but it was from the deer.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sure you had some interesting experiences.
especially in my Prius, and
Yeah.
which I really loved the name that my students gave the Prius. It was my chick magnet.
Your chick magnet.
Yep.
That's too funny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I still have it.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Yep. How many miles does it have on it now?
It actually, after I retired, I wasn't driving it
Right.
that much, but it has about 220,000 maybe.
Right on. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a Toyota, so it'll go forever.
Oh yeah,
so.
without a doubt.
Yep, that's excellent. That's cool. And I mean, like, that's just it's just kind of funny, how everything came to be with driving the Prius in from Wayne at
Oh, yeah.
the wee hours of the morning, and it was just you kind of created a legend for yourself. And I mean, I'm sure you know this, but kind of created a legend for yourself in your own way, doing just doing that, just trying to get just convenience.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
it's funny.
ironically, I used to. This is one where I was when Coney was moved to the vocational center.
Yeah.
I would have contests with Jim Anastasio, the superintendent, who would get to work first.
Really?
Yes, he was literally there
Yeah. The first man in the building.
almost
Yeah,
exactly the same time I was, and we would literally kind of sprint to the door. It was always in the back parking lot, and whoever opened the door first won. So it was really kind of a nice little competition for a number of years.
Yeah, that's funny. And he's Mr. Anastasio getting ready to retire.
Yes,
Yeah, was
I
gonna
just
say.
saw that on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and I'm praying that they give him the send off that he deserves because
Yeah.
he was an administrator to die for. I mean, in my book, he has a little blurb in the very beginning, which was really nice of him to pen, but he literally he's the most effective administrator because he's basically he leaves you alone.
Lets the
He'd come in
teachers
your
teach,
classroom
yeah.
and sit down, and his eyes would light up and he'd have fun and stuff like that, but he always was behind the teachers.
Yeah, he wasn't just there to critique and be like,
No.
hey, Tom,
No.
you can't be doing this. Or
No.
like, hey, when you said that, yeah, no, like I said, that's
Ooh,
that's excellent.
my fingers are crossed for his replacement.
Yeah, no. Well, and that's be big shoes to fill. And actually, I
Oh,
remember
absolutely.
he was principal actually when I started at Coney. He hadn't moved up to the superintendent role yet. I don't remember who it was.
He was a great principal.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think he was only principal for like a year or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
But anyway, regardless of that, no, that's big shoes to fill, especially
Oh.
with a lot of big shoes to fill when a lot of folks retire over
Yeah.
in the Augusta, in my opinion, the Augusta School Department, and there were big shoes I still don't think they filled the shoes for you over there. In my opinion,
Well, that's because they smelled so much. They don't want people.
they threw them out. No.
Oh yeah, they tossed them.
And so I guess at what point, like, you're obviously involved with the sports side of things, but at what point do you become, like, more involved with, like, other activities throughout the school? Were you always involved with things? Because, I mean, like, I know you were, like, when by the time I, came to interact with you, you had been in many a Chisel Whistle show, and, we can unpack all of that good stuff, but I guess kind of adding to the tapestry of your time as an educator, and, like, I think that, the teachers that many students look back on fondly get involved in the extracurriculars, not just coaching, but also the plays and
everything.
and especially when you have something that is unique as Chisel Whistle. Believe it or not, that's actually a piece from the Rock of Stages show behind us. That's actually a piece of
Really?
Riley Hopkins made that, and Lindsay Morin made me ask him if I could take it, and he goes, "I don't care, man, just take it."
Wow.
And so I held on to it for many years because I just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
And so then when I started the podcast, I said, I know what it's going to be my backdrop, and so that's actually from a Chisel Whistle show,
Very
from
meaningful.
the minstrel section. Yeah, I know it's fun. So I guess getting back to just in general though, when did you start getting involved in other than sports stuff?
Well, I literally, pretty much left sports, in the 90s.
Yep.
I coached cross country into the early 2000s, but my sports career, I got so heavily involved with the classroom, and that took so much time, and good time, and it wasn't like it was meaningful, truly meaningful, but I did make that transition, and I would pick up things that I thought I could handle time-wise and not sacrifice the classroom stuff. I mean, I used to, as you know, when major papers were due, which was often, I used to have writing conferences that were required.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't
and
get
I
a good
had
grade if you
100 students,
Yeah.
so 100 writing conferences that aren't done in class, that are done during my prep period before or after school. That's why I used to have writing conferences at 5:15 in the morning. That's my record for a student being there.
Right.
But I definitely jumped in with both feet, teaching writing, the last 15 years of my career, and but I liked getting involved in Chisel Whistle and things like that, because anytime you can be with the kids wearing a different mask or wearing a different face, it helped you create those relationships that were so meaningful.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I actually remember fondly, like, as a kindergartner. I mean, you say you don't remember. People don't remember that far back, but I know I've told you this. I told you this story when I was at Coney too. But being a kindergartner and going over with my parents to the old Coney for Chisel Whistle.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't remember the exact theme, but it was like Gilligan's Island, and I think the minstrel section was like, you were a pirate though, as an interlocutor, and I remember very fondly Captain Pirate Wells, and I was like, this is awesome, and I'm going to do this someday.
Yeah.
And like, not and just be involved in Chisel Whistle, and I did, obviously, and it was. I look back at being an end my senior year very, very fondly, and working with Marcia and Teresa Marcia Gallagher, Teresa Bowden,
so talented,
and Lynn Burney and everybody like that. Just so good, and I mean, and the Oleo directors too, and Lindsay Morin and everybody. Just, I mean, even I'm sure different folks back when you were doing it. I mean, a couple different folks, but still,
not many though. People who got involved never gave it up until they couldn't walk any longer.
That's true. Well, actually, I ran into Lindsay down in Hollowell at Corey Tapp, and we were both actually auditioning for Central Maine Idol. We both auditioned for that, but didn't make it. But we just happened to be like, and then Lisa Plord's like checking us in. It was a little weird, little like, oh hey everybody.
That's kind of ironic.
Yeah, it really was. It was kind of funny. But so I was talking with her, and I said, honestly, like, if you ever find yourself in a spot like you need a pit drummer, you need call me. Like, I would happily volunteer, my time after work. Or I said, honestly, like, I think back like to the older Chisel Whistles and how it's changed a little bit to like how the Votech got involved and like they built sets.
Right.
And like being in the electrical, tell me I'll come in and wire, put light bulbs and plywood if you want. Like, I mean, like once I'm licensed, I mean, like definitely,
sure.
like, I mean, like that's, it'd be cool to lend a hand, especially in that, because that doesn't require me to be like at a practice at a set time.
Right.
Like just as long as the building's unlocked,
Sure.
type of thing. But
And you probably get free tickets too.
True, probably.
hey.
You know, I actually,
That's
I'll be
huge.
honest with you, I haven't been to a show
Yeah.
in a long time. I just have either been busy or
Yeah.
COVID, or I was like when I was working at Coney, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get involved in Chisel Whistle
Yeah.
again, even if I'm watching kids in the gym. I don't care. And they're like, yeah, we're not gonna be doing any type of in person anything this year. And I'm like,
Ooh.
I was so sad. I was
Yeah.
like, I told that she goes, yeah, that makes sense. She goes, you would have been great to have help out. I go, yeah, I mean, like, I love this stuff. Like I
Hello.
said, yeah, I mean, like I said, I love this stuff. And again, that's one of the things I think that makes Coney and I guess Augusta unique is Chisel Whistle in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
And so I guess how did they just come? How do they pick the interlocutor? Did they just ask teachers, or is it voted on, or like did they just? Or how were you asked? I guess would be the better question.
I think it's I'm not positive
Right.
of the process. I know it's legitimate,
Yeah, I know.
but people will express interest,
Yeah, yep.
and from that point on, whoever's in charge of Chisel Whistle and the quote hiring process, maintains contact with them, and basically, I think it just kind of comes down to who's perfect or most fit for that particular show.
Yeah, and the theme
it
and
may come down right to
yep.
might come down to the theme.
Yep.
And I have never encountered an interlocutor or interlocutor wannabe that's been disappointed.
Right.
Feel like they've been abused or something
No,
like that.
yeah.
So it's a process. I don't know if it's set in stone. I just know it's good.
Yeah, right.
So
That's fair. No, that's definitely fair. And how many times were you interlocutor?
I
in
think it
Chisel
was
Whistle?
7.
7.
Yeah.
Yep. There was also. Were you interlocutor? There was like a western or like a cowboy theme.
Yeah,
one year
yeah,
too.
yeah.
I remember that also being at the Old Coney. Those are the only really 2 shows I remember, and that's where my Chisel Whistle memories of old for me.
Well,
tap
Old
out.
Coney's was a hard place to duplicate.
Yeah.
It was really, that auditorium was.
Well, they had like
Yeah.
they
had everything you
yeah,
could
it was
want.
like it was wicked,
Oh,
unique space. And
Absolutely.
I mean, you never get that, again, unless they literally like
Yeah.
made a mock-up of it and rebuilt it at the.
Well, apparently when that Coney was built,
Yep.
that auditorium was like state of the art, and it was like talked about throughout the state.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't around for that, but that's
Right.
that's what I heard.
Yeah. I mean, it is a very impressive.
Oh.
How many other probably some of the newer high schools that have been built since, but like how many like high schools really in the state have an auditorium that can sit almost like 1,000 people, and I mean, you could really put on a major production at
Yeah.
that with all the soundboards, and
Absolutely.
the sound booths, and everything they have, and
Oh, they hit
capabilities.
everything
But,
you could possibly want.
no, and more.
Oh yeah.
Oh shoot. I guess moving forward, and so come to the mid 20 teens, you end up running into me. And when did you actually physically like retire from? It wasn't much after I graduated. I graduated in 15. When did you fully retire?
Well, it depends on when I retired.
Well, yeah, you retired.
Well,
and
this
came
is one
back.
reason why I love Jimmy Anastasia.
Yeah.
I wanted to do what's called double dip.
Yeah.
That's retire, and then collect retirement. Come back.
Yeah.
Reapply for my job, have a full-time job, but also collect retirement.
Right.
Because it allowed me to take my retirement and actually invest it, which
Yeah.
obviously teachers don't have the opportunity to make much money for retirement.
Right.
And he was like
Sure.
all over it.
Yeah.
So I did retire. I think it was like 2013, maybe.
Yeah, it was because I was like, no,
Yeah.
you can't leave. Like
And-
and you're like, I'm not going anywhere,
No.
dumbass.
No.
Like you're fine. Like
Yeah. And I came back, I think, for like four more years.
right on. Yeah,
after
you
that,
did.
So,
Yeah,
which I
was to say.
collected the double, and it was a win-win.
Yeah,
he
no,
got to
that's
keep me,
excellent.
and I got to make some money finally.
Yeah. And I mean, just to also, I guess, to give a little bit of background, Mr. Wells' room that he had, we were actually talking about this. He was up above, you said culinary arts, right,
Yeah.
in the Votech Center. So he wasn't actually like physically in the Coney High School building proper. He was in the tech center, which was just adjacent, connected by this big
And,
hallway.
ironically, it was caused that by a overpopulation of Coney.
Right, yeah.
It was just like off the charts. We were literally had like 14 or 1,500 students. So
Wow.
right now they have like 690 or something like that.
It's amazing how
Oh yeah.
the population's changed a lot in Augusta,
But
especially
they
kid-wise.
shifted 4 classrooms from Coney, the new Coney, which was literally connected to CATC, which is the technical center, by a hallway. They moved 4 Coney teachers to CATC because their population was diminishing, and some classrooms opened up there. So I was one of them, and I was literally directly over the culinary arts program. And the day didn't go by when I wasn't asked to try to taste test some food.
Yep. Yeah. That's a huge perk.
Oh yeah, and that classroom, because it was such a large classroom, it was, I don't know what program was there before, but it was literally probably triple the size of a regular classroom. I literally had a living room set up.
Yep.
I had a kitchen set up in
Yep.
which I would make students, especially students who didn't get breakfast in the morning, I'd make them pancakes.
Yep.
And kids who I knew didn't get much sleep at night because they came from abusive homes, during their prep periods or their study halls, I let them come in and take a nap on the couch.
Yeah.
It was just, I was so lucky.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like, unfortunately, like, I don't know, I just feel the way the world is today, like, it's almost like your classroom couldn't exist, and, well, like, literally doesn't exist now, unfortunately. Like, they
Yeah.
literally, like, I mean, I think it's some type of probably VOTEC classroom now.
Oh
again,
yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah, I'm
but
sure it is. But
that's-
that type of classroom, there are classrooms there. I mean, the whole key is to make a kid feel safe. And are certainly classrooms out there that do that.
Yeah. Oh,
They
definitely.
just won't have a couch to sleep on.
Right, yeah, no, that's right. That's where the line's drawn. But I mean,
Yeah.
almost forgot about the pancakes too. I mean, like,
Oh, yeah.
you do that for your not even just the folks that didn't have breakfast, but
Oh.
for some of your classes too.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
If we towards the end of
If
the
you
end of the year, or-
if you like got your best grade on an essay or something like that, or
there'd be pancake party, yeah,
or your writing folder was finally completed or whatever. But
whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that was another excellent perk of having you for three
Oh,
three
yeah.
classes. And so I guess after you retired, was that? I guess we'll just segue into the book. As I mentioned in the opening, you're also an author on top of an
Yeah.
educator. And so, did the book come out of the retirement, or how did the retirement set the stages for the book? Or are they unrelated? Or
No, the retirement's directly related to the book because
Yep.
when I retired, the person who took over the English department, Lori Roderick, and she had done this for some earlier teachers as well, but she taught a senior class that she really came up with this wonderful writing assignment for them before they graduated. And they had to do it. They had to write a note thanking a teacher for something they did for them.
right? Yep.
So she did that for me when I retired, but she kind of did it more aggressively and put the word out to kids who had graduated already. And kids the prerequisite was that it had to be handwritten. So she would literally get letters every day in the mail and stuff like that, and she put together a portfolio. It's called Tom's on there's a gold. I have it here somewhere, but there's a gold plate on the front, and it says, "Life sucks, and then you retire, dumbass." Because when kids would complain, I used to say, "Hey, life sucks, and then you die. Okay, just deal with it." And I used to call kids dumbass when I really liked them. And in fact, they literally asked me, begged me, because if I call them that, it would show that I like them. And it was based on the 70s show, the character Red Foreman, who was a curmudgeonly old man. But when he called someone dumbass, they knew he really cared about them.
Term of affection,
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely. So that was kind of like, so that was the plate that was on the front of the, and when I started reading it, I just was totally overwhelmed. It took me almost a year to get through it, not because there were so many notes, but there was. But every time I read something, I'd cry. And in the middle of it, I realized that I made a huge difference in a lot of kids' lives, not by teaching them English, not by doing anything, but being a mentor for them and helping them get through their lives and give them skills pretty much to survive.
Yeah, that's very accurate in a lot of ways. I mean, for my opinion as well. I mean,
And that's just not me. That's teachers.
yeah,
Good
no,
teachers.
yeah,
Not
no,
all teachers,
exactly.
but
No,
good
no, no,
teachers.
no, no. The ones that make a difference, like you
Yeah.
were talking about, making the connections and
Yeah.
everything like that. I mean, that's what makes the huge difference. And I mean, like those that you remember. And actually, funny enough, the life sucks and then you die. I actually broke that out a couple of times in college, and they said, "Who taught you that?" And I said, "My English teacher." Which would always warrant a laugh or two. They say he must be an interesting guy. I said, "Oh, he's a character, that's for
Oh,
sure."
yeah,
I said, but I have to thank him because you know what? I wouldn't be probably at St. A's if not for some of the the writing guidance that was given to me.
And I'm quite honestly, I'm more proud of my students who couldn't go to college, either afford it or whatever,
Right.
and who are adults with families, with jobs, and they're happy and they're good people.
They're doing good. Yeah, right.
That's-
yeah,
that's,
yep, right. I mean, that's like, and I guess conception of the good is up
Yeah.
for debate, obviously. But
absolutely.
like, the fact of the matter though is that is rewarding to see. Like, I can relate very in a short aspect, but like some of the kids who I had as seventh graders, I then coached as
Yeah.
freshmen on the soccer
Right.
team, and they were just like, it was just funny to catch up with them, and
Yeah.
that was rewarding enough for me, just being able to like
Yeah.
see them again, and coach them again, because like they were like couple of them were in my homeroom too, and it was like they're just like, you were just gone. I was like, yeah, I kind of felt I told you guys that there was a good chance of that, but like I said,
Yeah.
they're like, but we didn't expect you to be like gone. I go, I said, unfortunately, guys, I guess there's a little bit of a life lesson there too.
Yeah.
Sometimes people, I mean, I'm not saying people just disappear, but sometimes people do leave. I said, unfortunately, but they come back around though. I said, look at this. I said, and they said, that's true. That's true. I go, yeah. Hey, you never know. You
No.
never know who you'll run into. So I said, behave, behave. So the retirement though, and the letters prompted the writing of the
prompted
book.
the book. Took me
it's
like probably a year and a half.
right on.
And I published it through Maine Authors Publishing, which was nice because I actually had we created a group called the Maine Writing Project, and every summer a bunch of English teachers from around the state, actually New England, would get together for a week, and we just go someplace on the campus, or we'd go down, sit on the Stillwater River, or we'd go someplace and we just write.
Wow.
And it was very meaningful for me because I got to create these wonderful connections with adults while I'm writing about the wonderful connections I have with kids. So
Right.
it was definitely a win-win.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
And so when you get into the book, I mean, I guess just kind of, if you could give a rough outline, I mean, what is the subject matter and, along those lines?
Well, I mean, the book, I happen to have a copy right here.
Oh, how convenient.
Yeah, I know. And the title is Dear Mr. Wells, as Students Speak. And it's it's from the heart, and it's kind of, it's hard to explain, but it's the letters pretty much had different themes, and the themes would become the topics for the chapters.
Okay.
Like they might talk about how they loved how gruff I was.
Right.
So that would be like a chapter.
Right.
But how much I cared about them and how I showed how much I cared about them. So that would be a chapter. So I talk about it in the chapter and then use the students directly, the quotes for the support. So it's not empirical necessarily. It's all narrative kind of support. But I found that actually more convincing. And I wrote it like I was writing to my students. So I really, at times it was a little gruff, which is my style. And, like this chapter is titled Dumbass Luck, because that's kind of my describes my career. And so, but basically, the whole purpose of this book was I felt like I had to write it, not bragging, telling teachers that they are making a difference. Teaching goes like this. Sometimes you've got everyone's support, and sometimes everyone thinks you're an idiot.
Right.
And the whole theme of the book was, hey, when you're down here, don't listen. Trust yourself.
Right.
And things will get better. Because I remember one thing I was really adamantly opposed to was standardized testing.
Yep.
Because it never took into consideration what a kid's like.
Right. Yeah.
It's whether you got a high math score or a high English score. And some kids don't test well, and some kids, quite honestly, don't know that material, but they're great people. They're going to be successful. My most successful student, who just took me to Southwest Harbor last week, is a multimillionaire, never went to college, but he developed absolutely to die for personal skills and picked up enough empirical knowledge to obviously get through. But he is the nicest person in the world and the most caring and hardest working person in the world. And that's the kind of person schools should be creating, along with families, because obviously families.
Right.
But some kids don't have that at home.
Right. No, that's true.
But the whole key to that book is pretty much captured by this: a student is more than a test score.
That's true.
All right, and that's kind of why I quite honestly I made more money speaking at schools, going on a speaking circuit. There's teacher workshops. There's 4 usually for every school system in the state. And quite honestly, it's the thing I hated most of all, because I wanted to be teaching the kids.
Right. Right.
My first line in my presentation for these teacher workshops was, I know what you guys are all thinking. And I look around the auditorium, and they'd be sitting there like this, just like I would be. I said, you all hate me right now. And then they go,
Who, me?
and I said, it's okay. And the goal of my presentation, which is only an hour, is that you leave not hating me. So I would basically reinforce good teaching skills and the fact that they are making a difference, and to not to listen to naysayers. And if you get a helicopter parent there, of which there are many, just nod a lot.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
And let them walk out the door, and then move on to do something more positive. But
and then focus on something that matters.
Well, it's very challenging, and it's understandable that parents want their children to do well.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Oh yeah.
But the definition of what is doing well, and it's not necessarily getting, a perfect score on the SATs.
Right.
It's getting a perfect score and helping their fellow students out for a week.
Yeah. All right.
So.
And that's like and that's a huge value, like, realizing that they're like that's what I tried to get across to some of my students too. Like when I was teaching for a year, it's just like that there are life lessons in school that you'll learn that aren't just like 1 + 1 is 2, or like George Washington was the first president, but like I said, in terms of like learning that there are things bigger than yourself, learning that your role in this is what you put into it. You get out of things what you put into them, and like different things like that, and like being willing to be selfless, and like different just like important things that make you like, I guess, well-rounded, but also like a decent person at the end of the day too. Like, and that's why I think things like Day of Caring and different things like that are so important. Actually, that reminds me, when you, myself, and Mr. Brittner went over to the United Way breakfast, and they had us talk for whatever reason they had us talk about but and it's true though. I mean, I feel the same way I did that day as I do now, and how important like volunteerism and all that type of stuff is, and like that's what makes good people. As far as I'm concerned, you're like being able to like lend your time, and like not just trying to toot my own horn here or your horn, by any means, but like, those that are willing to give their time up for something that, they don't get a direct, like, monetary
Yeah.
benefit out of it. I mean, that's huge. You know, I mean, it's at an all-time low, also, but you know,
Hey,
that's
the
big.
payment's right here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it. Like, and I think that's another, you know, an important life lesson that I think you got across to a lot of students too is like, you
Yeah.
know, having that good,
Right.
feeling good about what you're, what you're
Yeah.
doing and everything like that. Like you said, like your student there that he feels good about it. What he does, he's
Yeah.
happy, and yeah, you don't have to be college educated to feel good and be happy. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? Like that. I think that's a big point too. I mean, as somebody who's gone from the college educated world, like the
Yeah.
academia,
Yeah.
very heavy academia world, to the trades and a trade program, and honestly, like community college is awesome. I love it. I can't I can't complain.
The proceeds from my book are setting up a scholarship for community college or vocational school.
That's excellent. I
Yeah.
mean, that's really. And I guess speaking of the book, where can people find it if they're interested in getting a copy?
Well, my publisher is is Maine Authors Publishing,
Yep.
and they have a website you can actually go to and,
Okay.
and purchase it there.
Okay, perfect.
If anyone's super interested and wants to contact me or save a little money, I've got, quite honestly, probably about 100 copies left, and I'd be glad to send you one signed and whatever you can afford. I actually went to a book signing last week at the Common Ground Fair,
Oh wow.
and I gave away about 10 copies because the people said, I said, well, take it then. I want you to get the message. I'm not doing
Right.
it for the money. I'm doing
Right.
it for the message. So just take it.
Right. That's excellent. I mean, that's not a lot of people would just do that.
Well,
So
the
I mean, that's-
message is
Yeah, no, and I mean, yeah, no, it's true.
absolutely,
It's true, and I mean, like in terms of like when you think about folks, especially at Coney High School, that were all about the kids. I mean,
Yeah.
you were always on that list, if
Right.
not towards the top. I mean,
well,
even, I mean,
there's a lot of people there like that.
oh
so
no, I know, but
I
it's,
know,
it's a big
but-
list. But I mean, it's
But some faculties are brainwashed into, I know schools that put test scores ahead of
right.
kids growing personally.
Oh yeah, no, I can think about like talking with some of my friends who went to some of the schools down in like the
Yeah.
Boston area,
Yeah.
where they're like Boston
yeah.
Latin School
Yeah.
and like some of these like super like rigorous, like you have to get test scores to get
Oh, yeah.
into these high schools.
Yeah.
It's like I'm like, did that like impact? They're like, oh yeah, that definitely impacted like my ability to like be chill and
Yeah.
like like be relaxed and like have a social life, and it's
I would love to follow, some graduates from schools like that around and see where they are in 10 years, and whether they're truly happy and leading meaningful lives.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
truly.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the,
truly.
That's the
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the real qualifier.
I got a job
there is
that
that
I make this much money, and I live here and I live there. I said, I know, but are you
you're
happy?
happy.
Are you
Yeah.
feeling good about yourself? Oh yeah. I said, okay, that's
Okay,
cool.
no,
then.
if you
you
are, I
can,
mean-
you can without a doubt.
Yeah.
But I think the odds are against you.
No, and that's I think I've something that I've realized as I've gotten older too is just sometimes less can be more in a
Oh,
lot
absolutely.
of ways.
Yeah.
And just sometimes the most the most wealth in one's life can really just come from the people they have around them. If
Yeah.
you have good people
Oh.
around you and you've done some good
It's-
things, I
It's
mean,
a good place to be.
right, exactly. Yeah, no, most definitely, and it's it just like I said makes a person feel much more whole, and that's something that definitely takes some life experience
Yeah.
to figure out. I don't think that's something that like we were kind of talking about beforehand, that I said things that I realized as high school Ryan Dumont versus obviously there's growth and there needs to be growth. I mean, you have to grow.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
if you want to be
Yeah.
like a functional person, you have to grow a little bit.
I think the measurement of growth and happiness is how well did you sleep at night?
No, I mean seriously. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like, it's funny you say that. When I worked for the campaign, when I was doing political
yeah.
stuff, I didn't
Yeah.
sleep for shit. Now that I work as an electrician, I sleep really, really well.
Okay. I've slept
It's
well
true,
for
yeah.
a long time.
Hey, I mean, but that's a testament to like what you've really kind of set up for yourself too, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I mean, whether it be through, I guess your dumbass luck, or your
Right. That's
or
without a doubt.
just somebody's looking out or whatever. I don't know your thoughts on religion, but if something's looking out or somebody's looking out. But the fact of the matter being is that you've also, even though things have worked out, that you've also done a lot of good and passed on
Yeah.
a lot of really quality mentorship to a lot of people. As the book is a
Well,
testament to.
and quite honestly, you create your dumbass luck.
That's true too. No,
Yeah.
you get, like I said, you get out of it
Right.
what you put into it. So I mean, that's very true too in a lot of ways. And I guess What was the first day going back? I guess to get back to teaching for a quick second.
Yeah.
Going back as a sub. What was it? How was it? Because I mean, it's not your.
Well, it's challenging.
Yeah.
Because
It's not your
obviously
classroom,
the
it's
whole
not-
thing
Yeah.
about getting stuff out of students is creating relationships with them. So
Right.
you got to do that first. So it can be very challenging, but it's the kid. I don't know. The kids just sense that I like them,
Yeah.
and I do. Then that's the whole thing. It's not like I have to tell them. And as soon as you get that message out there, and it might take a class or two,
Right. Yeah.
they'll do anything.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true.
In fact, their friends. If one kid doesn't kind of buy into it, the people in the class will take care of them.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Oh, they definitely will.
Yeah.
How many you like have siblings of students who do you run into any of that like my brother had you or blah 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 like when they were in high
Yeah.
school or a couple
Actually,
of
it's
those?
more my parents had you.
Oh,
but
parents, yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, that's
I am
fair.
a tad out there age-wise.
Yeah, that's
so
true. No, that's true. That's true. That's funny. Yeah,
When they say my grandparents had you, that's when I'm gonna
that's
stop
when
doing
you're
that.
done altogether. Yeah,
That's when there's no more subbing.
that's too funny. And so, I guess I get tying into not only just the Augusta area is very beautiful in its own right. I mean, in terms of like the natural wonderment. I mean, we have obviously the Kennebec River, which is kind of
Oh,
like another unique thing about the area is all the different, as you mentioned, all the different ponds and lakes. And
Yeah,
all
no,
the
it's
different things like
really
that.
cool.
Is that another part of what drew you to coming to Maine? I mean, being from New York originally, or was that? I know
Well,
you're a
I
big
mean,
outdoorsman. and
quite
such.
honestly, I have some roots in Maine, and
Oh, do you?
we would vacation in Maine
Oh, okay.
from New York.
Oh, excellent.
My uncle, my dad's brother lives in South Harpswell, and his other brother lives on Damascotta Lake.
Okay.
So we did have those connections to Maine, and we used to come up for 1 to 2 weeks every summer.
Okay. Right
So
on.
that definitely got. I learned what Bates, Bowdoin, and Colby were. Mainly, Bowdoin was right next to South Harpswell,
Right. Right.
and Colby and Bates just kind of those three always kind of go together.
Right. Right.
So that did expose me to Division III schools, which I wanted Division III because I wanted to compete
Right.
in track, and I actually competed in football as well. Those coaches contacted me because I was a pretty good pole vaulter in high school. So their contact stroked my ego enough so that I applied to those three schools.
Right on. I mean, hey, that makes. I mean,
Hey,
I can't.
it was
blame
it
you.
was a marriage, a good marriage for both.
Yeah. Right.
So
And so, I guess, what do you spend? I know obviously, but for folks that don't know, when you spend your time in the Maine outdoors in the warm months, you're a raft guy. I mean,
yeah,
certified raft
well, see,
guy.
that was another dumbass luck move.
right. Oh, was it?
Because the owner of the company was a teacher at Hotchkiss.
Ah, okay.
And he was involved in rafting because he was from Virginia, and he used to raft the Cheat and the Gauley rivers down there.
Okay.
And when his parents owned a place in Wayne, and he had been vacationing there for forever. So when he wanted to kind of stay in Maine, and he got involved with whitewater rafting as a guide, and ended up starting down east whitewater
Okay.
back in like 1981 or 82.
Okay.
And he got me into guiding that year, and the dumbass luck kicked in again because he had this beautiful sister who was now my wife.
What are the odds?
Yeah, so that kicked in as well,
Yep.
and he got involved with applying for whitewater permits for the Grand Canyon, the Colorado through the Grand Canyon, and the waiting list is usually 10 to 20 years for a permit, but he got one, and the trips are usually 3 weeks long, and they cover 230 miles of the river. So I literally was lucky enough in 1989 when I went on my first trip on his permit. I literally went to the administration and said, "Listen, I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks." I said, "It's not fair, that I'm gone for 3 weeks and kids don't." I said, "I'd like to take the year off," and they said, "No problem." So they gave me the whole year off, unpaid.
Right.
But I literally proposed to my wife on the raft trip, and that was in November. And we got married in February and took a 2-month honeymoon, 1 month in Australia and 1 month in New Zealand, with a stop in Hawaii along the way.
Wow.
So that was my year off, which was, I was very lucky that I worked for the people that allowed me to do that.
Right. Yeah.
So
Very lucky. Holy crap.
dumbass luck strikes again.
Right. Oh, geez. That's very cool. I mean, like when I had posted that I was in Arizona, I
Yeah.
obviously recently in Arizona,
Yeah.
relatively recently in Arizona, and was going to the Grand Canyon, and I posted some pictures, and you were like, "Yeah, I've rafted that." I'm like, "Of course you have." And it was just too funny. And then we got talking, and then ran into former track coach and
Yeah.
former interlocutor and former Mr. Cooper.
Yeah.
Ran into him and former high school social studies teacher at Coney. But I ran into him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I was on that trip."
He
And I was like,
was.
"What are the?" It's just too funny that two of my high school.
He was on the next trip.
On the next trip,
which was, I think, 2002.
Yep.
Because I literally renewed my vows with my wife at the same spot.
Oh wow,
Yeah, it was cool.
that's very cool. That's
Yeah.
very unique. He's also a raft guide, right?
Yes,
Yep,
absolutely.
yep,
He
yeah.
and I go way back.
Yeah.
I got him involved in it, but he's been in it pretty much as long as I have.
Yep, that's very cool.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've heard that talking with people that like big raft, people
Yeah.
who are really into rafting,
Yeah.
that Maine is actually a very unique place to raft in a lot of ways, and just our rivers are just different. I
Well-
can't remember specifically which ones they mentioned, whether if it was the Dead or the Penobscot or whatever we was talking about specifically, but they said like Maine's just kind of different.
It's different. I mean, the major rivers that are rafted commercially are,
Yeah.
are all dam controlled.
Yep.
And the fluctuations are pretty wild. But they you can call them up at 6 o'clock in the morning, they're at CMP, and they'll tell you, when the dam's going to be open and how much water is going to be going through for how long and the whole 9 yards. Which is fairly unique, but they are very cooperative because the commercial companies pay them like a head fee, like
okay.
$10 a
Yep,
head.
yep.
So I mean, CMP makes a pretty good.
I didn't know
Chunk
that.
of-
That makes
yeah.
sense though. Yeah.
Yeah, but with the trips that we take now, they're all private. I have my own raft,
Right.
and my friends do too. And if we want to go up on the Kennebec, you just have to put them in after the commercial companies go down,
Right.
and hope you can get it in time before the water's cut off.
Right.
But the Kennebec's it's very, it's a fun river. It's got great white water. The West Branch of the Penobscot is the other river that they run commercially. In fact, my wife's up there right now as we speak.
Yep.
And it's the Ripogenis Dam is the dam that's up there, and the gorge is a little more dangerous and a little more. It's more challenging.
That's the only one I haven't done. I've done the Kennebec and the Dead.
Yeah.
But I haven't done the Penobscot. I've actually canoed the West Branch of the Penobscot prior to
Yeah.
where they put in for rafting.
Right.
Where you come across Chizuncook Lake.
Right,
And,
right.
and that's actually where we got out. It was at the tail end, right
Right,
where that dam.
where the dam is,
Right
yeah.
where the dam is. That's
Rip
where we
Dam is
ended.
right,
Yep.
yep. Just below Rip Dam, you don't want to be canoeing.
No.
But it's a beautiful trip because you're half the trip is you're floating right at the base of Mount Katahdin.
Yeah, that's
So in fact, my wife Martha just sent me, before you just started interviewing, just sent me a picture of her on Chesuncook Lake with Katahdin in the background.
Oh wow,
So
that's a special place.
oh.
Well, Chesuncook Village specifically.
Yeah.
I've actually talked about it a lot on the podcast.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I mean like year-round population of 3.
3.
Yep. And when we were actually up there, and I've told this story before, but there was actually like a turf war going on between the Massachusetts people that trying to buy everything up and the townies.
Yeah.
And when we were there, a bunch of, I mean, like myself, Josh Antworth, and the couple of the Antworth, Aaron Bernier, a couple of the people who you would probably recognize from Coney were in Casey Bancroft, a couple of the people that were in Boy Scouts with with us, and we're there, and who comes in a motorboat? You've got like Maine State Police, wardens, this, that, like all the backwoods law enforcement shows up like strapped up, and we're like, what's going on here? They're like a guy who worked for like forestry department, Maine forestry was like, oh yeah, that's the they had a turf war last night. Someone's building got burnt down, and so state figured they'd step in before anything got too hairy. I go, oh geez,
that's what my wife just drove up into.
I'm sure they've probably. This was also like 10 plus years ago now, but like sure this was like I'm sure they've long settled it by now. I mean, like this was a while ago. Yeah, but it was just too funny. Like, come to this little like town where they like make their own root beer at the general store type thing, and it's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like,
It's an interesting area up there, especially with the mill effect as well.
Yep.
You've got that versus the natural people who are guiding and running canoes and climbing Mount Katahdin and then you have now the new Katahdin Woods and Water Monument, which is really a wonderful place. It's absolutely, it's undiscovered at this point in time, even though they're trying to get it more.
Accessible.
Yeah, pretty much. But the whole area up there is to die for.
Oh yeah, no, it's. I mean, I did a whole series. I mean, 2 episodes on Mount Katahdin. You know, and the first people to discover the area, and then like in the second episode, talked about how Teddy Rose, how influential. You read a lot of books about like him in that time period.
I'm reading one right now.
I've got a big like 500-page one. I think I'm like maybe all of a quarter of the way. It's a big. It's like one of these, like ridiculous biographies. I have one on like Napoleon that's like that too, and it's like, why did I buy this? I'll only get through part of it, but like it's not overly dry, which is awesome because sometimes some of your biographies or autobiography, they can be a little dry, but this was just really incredible to see how much Maine and specifically that part of Maine meant to him and made him like the badass that he became. Really, I mean, like climbed Katahdin in moccasins because his boots fell in the stream type of thing. I mean.
He was a real person.
Yep.
A dumbass.
Yep. And so I guess also speaking of Katahdin, you also mentioned that you do some hiking as well. In the I say the warm months, but when there's not snow on the ground.
I like to hike. I was like where am I talking about now? Coastal Acadia.
Oh yeah.
The last week hiking with my wrestlers. But I live in Wayne, and I can get up to the Western Maine Mountains. So it's pretty.
2 shakes of it, yeah.
I was on Mount Blue yesterday. And,
which one? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I know. But I do like. I mean, the Maine woods is to die for, without a doubt. So
it really is. I mean, it's a very special place, and I mean, that's why I love going up to Aroostook County.
Yeah.
Especially like. I love going when I'm snowmobiling. I mean, while snowmobiling, people feel different ways about its invasiveness and things like that. I love being in the middle of absolute nowhere, turning the key off, and it's just quiet.
And I love following your trail in my cross country skis.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, it's
I don't pay to cross country ski.
I don't blame you.
I just ski snowmobile trails.
Yeah, it's just and I was gonna say that's for wintertime. I mean that do you do any downhill skiing at all?
No.
Nope, just cross country. Yeah.
Downhill staying. I never really got into it.
Yeah.
But I really never wanted to pay for it.
That's fair. It is.
That's why I don't pay for cross country skiing.
Nowadays, it's very expensive.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't blame you there at all. I mean, and and you can cross country ski anywhere, really anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah. It's funny, like if you go up to like if you have to like rent, any type of equipment, like you go up to like Sugarloaf or something like that. They're like.
Oh yeah.
But that's big. Their adventure center and stuff like that up there. Like I went up there. I mean, I don't ski regularly anymore. I mean, I can ski pretty well, but I was up there with some friends for like Martin Luther King weekend or something like that. We went up there and I was shocked to go down to the adventure center, which when I used to go there regularly was not overly developed, but they put a lot of money into things down there for the snowshoeing but like you drive right up and you have this beautiful view of Sugarloaf, which is like, oh shit. You know, which is, like I said, Maine is just a beautiful place naturally.
Yeah.
And, has, like I said, a lot of unique people in it.
Oh.
But, it is a very, very special place. And so I guess when you, set out on your, looking back, hindsight being what it is, when you set out on your, grand adventure from New York, did you see, obviously you couldn't have seen yourself setting up, a life in Maine. And
I live day to day.
Yeah.
A typical male.
Yep.
It's like, hey, tell me what's for supper, and that's all that matters.
That's all that matters, right? Yeah. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, you leads to not sweating. Some of the
and I wasn't a
things
big outdoor person.
Yep.
When I came up from
Oh,
New York.
yep, okay.
I was in. I like swimming and stuff like that.
Right.
But overall, it was like when I got to Maine, there wasn't a real outdoor connection immediately.
It took some time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, like,
better do it that way.
right on. Yeah, no. And so, what do you, just hanging out in retirement, getting ready? You said getting ready to start writing again.
That'll be my winter project.
Yep.
That
right
and
on.
I'll be skiing.
Yep.
There's a possibility my wife and I might be taking a safari in South Africa.
Like South Africa, the country proper. Yep.
yeah.
Right on. Yep.
That's in negotiations
Yep,
at this
yep.
point in time, but we definitely want to do some kind of major trip in this
Yep.
in the.
Did you put traveling on pause during the pandemic, or were you
Yeah,
still? Yeah.
yeah.
I did too. I
Yeah.
mean, my first plane trip was going to Louisville a couple months ago. I mean, since COVID, I just didn't feel the need.
No.
I didn't to go anywhere.
No.
I mean, you're in Maine. You don't really need to go anywhere.
Maine's got everything I need.
Yep. And I guess I just spending your time in Wayne. I guess what makes Wayne a special place. I mean,
Wayne has a unique quality. I can't totally define it, but it's pretty much represented by the Wayne General Store.
Okay.
Everyone in Wayne goes there. Everyone in Wayne visits there. Everyone in Wayne gets help from other people in Wayne there. It's a bakery right now. It's not called the General Store anymore. But they make absolutely to die for food, and their staff is as wonderfully meaningful as any staff that's ever been there. But I mean, give you an idea. When I first moved to Wayne, I was coming home from school, as a matter of fact, about 2 or 3 miles before you get to Wayne. There's a place called the Flats, and I got a flat tire there. And it was actually like 2 o'clock in the morning. So I went. I was like 2 miles from the Wayne General Store. I went there, knocked on the door at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they got up, they got out, they gave me a ride to my car, they fixed my flat, and that's Wayne.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's like Mayberry.
It is. And it has the Lad Recreation Center, which literally for free babysits every kid in town 365 days a year.
No way.
Yes. When they get out of school, the bus takes them to the Lad Rec Center, and they get to play soccer now.
Yeah.
And whatever else they want to do. If they want to read, they can read. There's a full paid position there. There has been the Ladd family has roots in Wayne for centuries, not centuries, but dozens of years.
Yeah.
And they are gracious and wealthy enough to run this building, which is a quarter of a mile from my house.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said,
that's Wayne.
they say it takes a village, and I think you guys kind of got it figured out.
We got it.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Not that you want to, blow the place up
and the people who the quote summer complaints.
Yep.
Who have homes on the lakes there and stuff like that, or they have Wayne in their spirit. They don't come up and do anything that Wayners wouldn't do.
Right. They're not up here like like deconstructing the waterfront to put in a beach, or doing crazy, crazy. Like, I mean, you're stereotypical, as we say, the out-of-stater type things that people do when they come up here.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
that's wild, and that's why I always love talking with different people about different places that I mean, I've
Yeah.
lived in a couple different places in Maine, but
Yeah.
like Wayne is very unique to the rest of the cities, towns, and anything really anywhere. To be honest
Well,
with you, it's a
it
cool
may
little
be.
place.
I don't know everything. All the other all the other towns.
Well,
But
I mean, I've been to a lot of
Yeah,
them, and I mean,
yeah.
like, it's, at least in the state of Maine, and
Yeah.
I mean, that's either on the back of an ATV, a snowmobile, or in a
Yeah,
car. And
yeah.
I mean, Wayne's a really special and
It is
unique little
cool.
place. I mean, I say that about all. I mean, all the towns in Maine are special and
Yeah.
unique in their own way, but like Wayne is different though. It stands out in a good way, in my opinion. But
And you
like,
throw Tubby's ice cream in there.
right?
That rounds it off. I can't believe I didn't bring any here.
Right?
What a dumbass.
Oh, that's excellent. So I guess kind of just to round out the episode, Mr. Wells, if there's anybody's listening that is getting into either education or is just starting out in education, I guess what piece of it, I mean, the cliche, what piece of advice would you,
I
give
have
to somebody?
one piece of advice and one piece of advice only. Always, when you're in front of the classroom, always look forward. Never look over your shoulder. Because what's in front of you is all yours, and don't let anybody get in the way. That includes tests, standardized tests, overactive administrators, parents, helicopter parents. Just look at those kids in front of you, make sure they're smiling, and feel good about yourself.
I don't think anybody could put it any better than that. And obviously, thank you so much,
Hey.
Tom, Mr. Wells, for
You know
for
why I
coming
came
on.
here?
Well,
I just wanted to see another one of my students. Seeing
I appreciate
students
that.
is top of my list.
I like I said, I look forward to seeing, there's a handful of folks I
Yeah.
definitely from high school look forward to seeing whenever I run into them. And, you're on that list, and there's the others that, they know who they are. But, it's always great to catch up and just see where you're at, where I'm
Yeah,
at, and just
absolutely.
kind of, compare and contrast.
Right.
And so, like I said, thank you so much for, for coming on the podcast and making time to, come over and chat. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And it's been cool to. This is kind of like a full,
Yeah.
again, as I
It's
like
a
to
get
say,
together, man.
It's a full circle moment for me too, though.
Yeah.
It's good to reflect a little bit
Yeah.
and talk with you about writing and all these different things. So it's been cool. So
Well,
like I said, thank you
For
so
me
much.
as well, thank you.
Hey, I appreciate it.
All right.
Excellent. Well, thank you all to all of you, listening and watching and all that. And if you want to keep up to date with us, you can find us at the DuView Podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, or at DuView207 on Instagram if you're over on that app. Make sure to check us out on YouTube, as we do have video now, as you can see. And if you're interested in Mr. Wells' book, Dear Mr. Wells, His Students Speak, you can get that as, it'll be linked in the description, or you can reach out to Mr. Wells personally. if you'd like
Whatever.
to, whatever works. So we'll have that all linked in the description for this episode and everything like that. So like I said, thank you to everybody, and last thank you to Mr. Wells. And we'll see you next month for our next episode. And in the meantime, be cool, be well, and keep it together, folks.
You got an A, Ryan.